What's everybody doing? All right. Can anyone hire a movie star? The short answer is yes. So, just to do a brief intro here, I know there's a lot of you out there that, like me, work or go to school full time and have a family to feed and would like to earn extra income with their creative minds rather than trying to products. So, that's what I'm here to help you out with. I'm Lord Max. I'm a best-selling comic creator, film producer, and owner of Hoven Crow Entertainment. I showcase the best creative side hustles. So if you want to learn how to make money as a writer, a filmmaker, artist, musician, etc., you've come to the right place. Hit the like button, subscribe, etc., if you're interested so far. Jumping right in. In America, if you're wanting to hire a movie star, it depends on how hot the so-called A-lister really is. An A-lister from 10 years ago is not worth today what it was back then, what they were. So this is why you're seeing huge stars from like the 80s and 90s starring in relatively unknown, almost low, no budget movies even today. People like Mel Gibson, Bruce Willis, Nick Cage, Robert De Niro, you'll see them in a film that it's like, man, I probably could have made that. I wonder how much they cost, or at least that's what I have wondered. And now that I know the answer, I'm I'm here to let you know what it is, and it's not as crazy as you'd think. Um, I've mainly made films overseas in India, and so over there it's a lot easier to get an A-lister, simply because it's just a bit more affordable from our standards. But they just don't have as much power because they're really only a star in that select region, and so anywhere else in the world, they just don't have as much power. So if you're marketing to the South Asian market like I am, they're worth worth something. But if you're trying to get an A-lister from Bollywood and then market your film in the U.S., it doesn't have the same effect, obviously. Um, so, but the point being is that stars today, if you want just someone that's marketable, that has a familiar face, and so someone that was a star back in the day or someone that's a star overseas, that's what you most likely are going to be able to afford. Unfortunately, though, once you actually, even someone that was an A-lister back in the day, um, like they still will have extra costs on top of like their daily rate, because they usually want you to pay for like their assistant or special meals or special makeup or something like that. You'll have to add that into the total cost as well. And then if you're filming in the jungle like I've done, you'll and you get a weather delay like I've had happen, you could be totally because now you just paid to have an actor and their assistant and all their other special needs fly to your film shoot and do absolutely nothing. But I'm going to jump into the rundown of the numbers. So you can afford high level talent. The catch is that you can probably only afford them for one day, and then definitely only one of them. And most likely it's like you'll get a star, um, but you won't actually use them in the starring role. And that's why you see films that are like with blah 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 and not saying starring. Like they'll still get top billing, but it's just like when you actually see it in the film, it's like with Jimmy Smith. Um, but anyway, the point being, you can only afford one or two, and you can only afford them for a day or two, most likely. Especially if you're going for like hotter names today. In fact, someone that's like a hot name, or like someone that's, I say hot meaning like they're trending in a way. Someone that's a familiar face, or they may not be a star, but they're in a big series. They're probably worth more than someone who was, a superstar 10 to 20 years ago, or about the same amount, depending on what you're trying to do. Obviously, if you're niche like in horror or something, and you've got someone that was well known in other horror films back in the day, they're going to bring a lot of value rather than just having some guy that was in one Netflix series or something. Who knows? That's the gamble there. But anyway, the point being, once again, is like uh, you have to kind of pinpoint exactly what you're trying to do and try to budget them out for just a smaller section. So this is why indie films often get big name actors to play like a non-starring, often like the villain or the grandparent or the parent kind of role, where the starring role is like the younger actors. Um, but a good example of like when this was done, I remember, although now it's a bit of an older film, I'm way behind, but I remember the Jeremy Saulnier film Green Room had Patrick Stewart, and I remember reading or watching something where it was explaining how like they only could afford to have him for one day, and so they, although he was like had a major role in the film, he's like the bad guy. He's dominates the trailer, um, but minute for minute throughout the whole film, he's not in it very much. His whole scenes could be filmed in a day, although it was probably a handful and a rush and hard to do. But he was like playing the big boss who only comes to light when big decisions need to be made. So the rest of the film's bad guys were played by like his lieutenants and henchmen. But that was genius the way I saw it. It's like that would be the kind of role that's what you save your superstar for. It's like it's an interesting character. You can do it all in one day, but it's important, and you can top bill them and put them like all over the trailer. But anyway, jumping. So what are the numbers? It's fairly straightforward. Sorry. Um, these vary by levels of magnitude, and these numbers are negotiable. It's not like just like set. It's not like you can hold me to this, but in a general sense, if your film is below 100K, your whole budget, unknown talent is generally about like $200 a day. And a lot of this you can base off of the SAG after terms, and the they even have like a rubric that you can look up based upon the budget of the film, and you can take this rubric to almost like consider you if you almost like level your film based on the budget of like, is it an A-list film, and that means you can probably afford an A-list actor, and by that rubric, it's basically like $2 million plus. If your budget's $2 million plus, you can afford an A-lister. If it's 700,000 or more, then you're leveling down. If it's 300,000, you're leveling down again. And if your film's below 300,000, that's like a level on the. That's kind of like the lowest level on the SAG-AFTRA rubric there. My films aren't even close to that scale. Mine are so low they would be on the like Z list category. But I would still hire someone based upon that kind of like C and D list category, where it's like you would still pay them the 300K budget rate, and you'd basically tell them, even if your film's 50 grand or lower, you'd still say it's 300,000. And that's the rate you'd charge them. So like based upon their rubric, it's like you can kind of like just you do it as like a known face. They charge about 1,000 a day. A named talent or like a has been, they would probably charge roughly 10K a day. And each one of these go up with like a level of magnitude, kind of like I was saying before. And then like a hot star, they'd probably charge 100,000 a day. So you add that up to a 20-day shoot, you're looking at 20,000 to 200,000 for a known face and 2 million plus for a movie star. That's why movies are so expensive with stars. And you can look all this stuff up, but the exact terms vary. I think year to year, maybe even every 6 months. But if you look them up, you'll see it's about that. It's basically like when the budget range is greater than 2 million, the SAG day rate is 1,000 a day. And so that's kind of how I see it, and based upon my experience, well, of course, mine's mainly overseas. It's the same scenario where if you have whatever your rate is, it's negotiable, but you can kind of start there, and then they'll either add things or say it's like nowhere close. And I have had that happen. I've like basically been like, here's what it is, thanks, and like, oh, they agree to work with you. You kind of give them a general, and I guess I can go into that. Like, so how do you even contact a movie star? Uh, the short answer is you don't. You reach out to their agent, or you reach out to a casting director, or you have someone that already has relationships with agents and managers of those talent, or even someone that directly knows them or something. And you can find those email addresses on IMDb Pro or even just a Google search. These are like the in-betweeners, the gatekeepers, as they say, the managers and agents and things like that. And you essentially just call or email them, and you just explain your details. Like, I'm blah blah blah, and I'm producing, directing an independent feature film with an XX budget and an XX genre, and I'm looking to hire so and so to join the film. But and I can whatever send their script upon request, or they'll usually ask for whatever they need beyond that, if they even respond to you at all. That's about all I have on this topic for now. Thanks for watching. Like, sub, etc., or whatever, or I'll beat your ass.